Well, thank you very much for joining, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending upon where you are in the world, and welcome to today's webinar on the 4R Nutrient Solution Program underway in Africa. And today we're going to be talking about lessons learned from that initiative and how it really is improving livelihoods all across the regions where the project is being deployed. And it's particularly timely now as we're dealing with tremendous financial pressures on producers. So we're going to be unpacking that today and learning about experiences that are still evolving as we're talking today. My name is Ernie Shea. I am the president of an organization called Solutions from the Land. We are a farmer-led not-for-profit based in the United States, but we work very closely with the Global Alliance of Climate Smart Agriculture, Fertilizer Canada, and a number of other partners. And we're thrilled to have the opportunity to be helping to support the knowledge sharing aspects of the 4R Nutrient Solution Program. Today's webinar is being co-hosted by the African Fertilizer and Agri-Business Partnership, and we are honored to have that organization teaming up to help share the insights and experiences coming out of the 4R program. In terms of today, we've got a couple of housekeeping rules. We have a 90-minute program, and it will run probably for about the first 70 minutes of presentation, followed by hopefully 20 minutes of questions and answers. So please be thinking about questions that you may want to pose to our panel members as we go along. Jot them down, drop them in the chat box, and then when we get to that part of the program, Clyde Graham with Fertilizer Canada is going to be teaming up with me and helping to organize the questions, combining similar questions, try to make most efficient use of our time. So the session is being recorded. So hopefully partners and colleagues of yours that weren't able to tune in today, you might share that with them. And I'm sure this will be part of the post-webinar knowledge sharing continuation process that will continue. We have muted everyone's microphone to enable a higher quality sound presentation today. So you will not be able to speak, but again, you can pose questions in the chat box, or you can certainly use the question and answer function as well. In terms of our run of show, we're going to begin with a welcome by Joost van Oudek with the African Fertilizer and Agri-Business Partnership, and then we're going to go through a series of presentations, and I'll make those introductions as we go forward. So with no further ado, Joost, over to you for the welcome.
Thank you, Ernie, and welcome everyone. Uncertainty. It is clear we live in a time of uncertainty. Productivity, food security, gender equality, education, employment, they're all under pressure and uncertain, especially in African agriculture. And we have to deal with this uncertainty. However, and I like to look at things in with a positive mindset, this uncertainty also offers opportunity in policy and financing enablers, enhanced teamwork and collaboration, using effective partnership platforms, securing efficient delivery systems. Fertilizer Canada, AFAP, our partners, believe that cost-effective and environmentally responsible soil management and enhancement are key to increased food production for smallholder farmers in Africa. Scientifically based and site-specific application of organic and commercial fertilizers has demonstrated the potential to boost small farmers' yields and incomes while improving environmental sustainability. A great example is the right 4R nutrient stewardship framework. This is the methodology of the right source at the right rate, the right time, and the right place. We'll talk more about this over the next hour. Uncertainty and opportunity. This is what this webinar is about. And we look forward to productive discussions today it should be an exchange of ideas and solutions we either already work with or we want to. But first and foremost, to make these solutions scale so we can roll up our sleeves together, because we can't have this uncertainty lead us to a standstill, to a paralysis, a wait and see attitude. That's not us. No, we need to take charge in those areas where we're already active and reach out to others to join forces. I sincerely hope this webinar can contribute in that same spirit to this collective need today. I thank you for that. Over to you, Ernie.
Okay, Joost, thank you for that welcome. And again, thank you for hosting. This is what this initiative is about. It's about partnerships, uncommon collaboration, working together to help producers be more successful, secure, and have an improved quality of life. So now we're going to turn to an overview of the 4R Solution Initiative. For those of you that are not familiar with it, Joost just gave us a quick little setup, but to take a deeper dive into it, we're going to turn to Dr. Joseph Dangwa with the Cooperative Development Foundation of Canada, and he's going to be giving us an introduction to the 4R Solution Initiative. So I'm sorry, I apologize. It's Isaac Nyemke with the Cooperative Development Foundation of Canada. So Isaac, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Isaac Nyemke, as you mentioned, and then I'm going to give the overview of the 4R solution. Next. So basically, the presentation will cover in some challenges, and then the goal of the project, and then some achievement that we have made so far, and then I'll also be talking about the way forward. So we all acknowledge that crop production is low, especially in sub-Saharan Africa here. If you look at Syria, for instance, I think from the smallholder farmers harvest, they are harvesting about 1.5 tons per hectare as compared to the yield potential of about 5 tons. And then if you pick the grains, farmers are harvesting about 0.5 tons per hectare as compared to the yield potential of about 3 tons. So this low yield is attributed to the low use of fertilizer, that is organic, and then the mineral nutrients. And then the low yield is likely to contribute to food insecurity, poverty, and then malnutrition. It has contributed over the past, which we foresee that in the near future is going to be worsened. And then there is also this challenge of lack of access to input and services due to lack of cooperation among the smallholder farmers. And then we also have the abuse of chemicals and then also fertilizer, leading to increase in environmental pollution. If you can see the photo on the right-hand side, how farmers apply fertilizer, just the broadcasting, which can contribute to leaching. Next. And so we are saying that the 4R, which talks about efficient use of fertilizer in terms of matching the fertilizer type to the crop needs, and then also matching the amount of fertilizer to the crop needs, and then making the nutrient available at the right time, and then putting it at the right place when the crop can absorb it, is the solution to the problems that I've mentioned in the first slide. And so the 4R solution is a Canadian approach that will improve the socioeconomic well-being and resilience of 80,000 farmers across Ethiopia, Ghana, and then Senegal. Next. So over the past 3 years, we have established demo plots to introduce the farmers to the 4R principles of fertilizer application. We have also organized some trainings, some field days on agronomic practices to the smallholder farmers, about 40% of them are women. And then we have also supported these smallholder farmers to adopt the practices. And so if you look at the picture on the top right-hand side, that shows the farmers, some of the farmers applying the 4R principles of fertilizer application, making sure that they apply the right quantity at the right time and then the right placement with the right nutrient. And then if you pick the chart down on the right-hand side, these are the crops that we are working with. We have teff and wheat in Ethiopia, and then maize and groundnut in Ghana. And so the chart shows the farmer practice, the yield from the farmer practice, and then the yield from the 4R practice. So if you pick teff, for instance, before the 4R, farmers were harvesting about 2 tons. And then with the 4R, they are harvesting about 2.4 tons, which is about 19% increase. Wheat, if you compare the 4R practice to the non-4R practice, there is some increase of about 25%. And then maize and then groundnut, we observed about close to 200% increase, which shows that the 4R practice is good. It increases the yield of the smallholder farmers. Next. And so we have also formed, for cooperation, for farmers to access input through cooperation, we have formed 146 primary and then multi-purpose cooperatives across Ethiopia and Ghana. And then we have also supported the savings cooperatives and then the credit unions with about $100,000 as loan fund that farmers can access for production and then post-production. And then we have also, through the technology fund, farmers have been able to access some technologies to promote their farming system. And then some of the COP members have also been linked to the source of inputs and then resources such as fertilizer, seeds, mechanization services, and then also the market source. So if you look at the picture on the right-hand side, we have the motokens farmers acquired, and then below it, that is some of the cooperatives that have come together to mobilize resources internally. Next. And then we have also formed some women groups for commercial activities. We have about 7,840 women who have come together to form groups. And then we have also formed some gender model families to promote issues of gender equality at the household level. And then we also organize some gender dialogue sessions to make sure that gender issues are discussed openly among the communities and then also among the stakeholders. We have also formed men clubs and then school clubs to make sure that they champion gender issues at the institutional level and also at the community level. Continue. So let's go back. If you look at the picture, on the right, we have some gender dialogue sessions held, and then we also invited the MP. The person there is the MP for the Salaga. And then on the right-hand side down, we have the man and the wife who are ensuring that gender issues are managed within the household. Next. And then we also formed national advisory committees in Ethiopia and Ghana to make sure that they advocate for the integration of the 4R into policies at the national level. We also organize seminars and fairs to showcase some of the activities that we implemented on the field, and also to award some of the outstanding smallholder farmers and then the groups. We have also created some social media platforms. We have Facebook, we have Twitter, to make sure that the 4R information are shared publicly. And also this platform, we have also some learning platforms which are integrated in these social media platforms. So you can subscribe to the learning, and then if you pass, you can also win a certificate. We also work with 4-H Ghana to make sure that we promote the 4R championship projects. And so that one also took place in Ghana here. Next. So these are quotes from the beneficiaries to show how the 4R project has benefited them. This woman, before we started the project, we asked her, and then she's narrated that the 4R project, the 4R principle of fertilizer application is something that is new to her. And then she foresees that it will contribute to addressing the issues of food insecurity at the community level. She's from Ghana here, one of our project communities. Next. And then this man is also showing the harvest from the 4R, his farm where he practiced the 4R principle. And then he's saying that there is a clear difference. If you use the 4R principle, it increases the yield of your produce. So that is the harvest from the 4R field. Next. And then this woman is also a cooperative member, and who is showing the harvest that he had from, she was saying that it is not about the size, but making sure that at least even the little plot size that you cultivate, you do everything right and you'll be able to make it. So that is her harvest. Next. And then this is a gender model family. I think this woman is testifying that since they were introduced to the gender model family, and then the concept of gender, the man has been supportive at the household level, which she is happy, and the man herself is also happy because she can see a change at the household in terms of the way the roles are distributed, and now they support each other to make sure that at least everybody is at ease. Next. So these are the challenges that we face. I think in Ghana here, over the past, since we started the project, we had some challenges in terms of fertilizer. There was fertilizer shortage even last year. And so farmers could not get the quantities that they were supposed to get. So they managed. And then also in Ethiopia, I think the conflict that started somewhere last year affected the smallholder farmers' access to input. So the way forward, I think we want to promote the adoption of the principle among the smallholder farmers. So in the coming year, that is one of the things that we want to do. And then we want to also strengthen the farmer cooperatives and then the financial institutions, so that the financial institutions can be able to support the cooperatives to get the requisite inputs. And then we'll also be engaging the NAC to make sure that they advocate for the integration of the 4R principles in national policies. Thank you. This is the end of my presentation.
Okay, Isaac, thank you very much. That was a great overview. And I was particularly struck by those testimonials where you were identifying real world outcomes, and the outcomes are multidimensional. We'll talk more about that later. This is not just about increasing productivity, but as you pointed out, gender equality, financial improvement, more viable farming operations in local communities. So thank you very much. We're now going to show you a brief introduction to a video that we constructed on the 4R Nutrient Solution Program. You may or may not have seen this, but as you socialize this work broadly across your networks, this little teaser might be a helpful tool that really brings forward in a farmer voice why this program is so effective. So Lavanya, could we run the trailer, please?
We, the farmers in Chamba here, were wondering why we are not getting high and quality yield. And then this project came. Because formerly we were farming anyhow without any principles. So 4R project came and then start with some demo farms to train us how to farm and get quality and more yield. So they make demo farms. They say the right way to get your fertilizer and even the right way to start your farming, even the right land which you are to farm, and then the right source to get your fertilizer, right rate, and the right time and the right place. So when we started, we learned that from the field, the demo fields. And this year, if I apply it to my farm, I think I will get more and quality yield.
Before I learned about 4R, I didn't know there were specific herbicides for specific weeds and specific fertilizers for specific crops. But now, 4R has taught us to get the right source of fertilizer, the right time, the right rate, and the right place to apply the fertilizer. This year, I'll take my time to do the right thing. I will consult with the agriculture extension agents to support me so I can get better yields, sell it, and make enough money to take care of my children.
My hope and expectation in these 4R principles is I'm expecting that my life to change, because if I apply the right principles, I will get more yield and sell. And if I sell, I'll have money to help my family.
Great. Well, we hope you found that. We hope you found that valuable. And again, testimonials are such an important way to communicate the value of the 4R Solution Program. Hearing it right from farmers really is a powerful message. So thank you for that. Okay, Isaac talked to us about the role of the national advisory committees in the advocacy arena and the knowledge sharing arena as well. And today we're fortunate to have with us Dr. Joseph Dangwa with the CSIR Savannah Agricultural Research Institute in Ghana, who's going to be talking with us about the role of these advisory committees in the rollout and build out of the 4R solution process. So Joseph, welcome, and over to you.
Hello, thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Joseph Dankwa. I work with the Savannah Agricultural Research Institute. Next slide. Yes, the objective of the National Advisory Committee at the inauguration, we got to know that we have a role to play in terms of we are made up of an assembly of experts in the agricultural value chain who have expertise in championing the cause of the 4R process. Our role is mostly advocacy because we have to look at how can we influence national policy, and we have representatives from the Department of Agriculture, Research, the universities, and also the private sector. And some of these rules include the adoption of the 4R technologies. As researchers in the course of our experiments and dissemination processes, we have now started introducing the 4R to whoever wants to go out and disseminate any technology. So in our research, our clients, even outside the 4R project, we on our own are advocating for that principle. And we are also involved in training of other stakeholders. For instance, the universities, they are training people who will come out to be actors in the agricultural value chain. And they learn the principles from the universities as well. So for instance, soil science, a lecture teaching soil science will obviously introduce the 4R principle. And we also have members who are in the agro input dealers. And these people are ready to help farmers when it comes to access to the inputs. So these are some of the things that we are doing. Next slide. And as I said earlier on, we have an array of rich experts, personnel from diverse backgrounds, heads of departments of institutions. Currently, the chairman of the National Advisory Committee is the Director of Crop Services of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture in Ghana. And with the 4R being a very good principle, there are several government flagship projects, for instance, fertilizer subsidies program and all those things. So these are now incorporated, the 4R has been incorporated into some of these. So in terms of access to the inputs, we also have Peasant Farmers Association representative on the program, the National Advisory Council. So he also is in touch with the farmers when it comes to adoption of these technologies. And when it comes to access to inputs, we have representatives from the IFDC who are also into fertilizers, and they can also tell us the various blends on the market and how they can be incorporated into the 4R program. And even for sustainability's sake, there are other NGOs who will also take up these principles and use them in their activities. Next slide. And what role is the National Advisory Council actually playing when it comes to the projects? Our participation in the activities of the 4R project has been very remarkable. At the inaugural meeting, suggestions were made from members because of their different expertise on how the key action points of the project that were identified could be prioritized and then executed in terms of the impact that we expect the program, the project to make. And at this same meeting, specific rules were assigned to members of the National Advisory Committee that whichever active role that anyone can play, be it research, be it access to inputs, be it advocacy at the policy level, for instance, Director of the Crop Services, what can they do at the national level to help push the 4R principle? The various lecturers on the group, what can they also do? So all these were clearly assigned, and where there were even challenges, a subcommittee within the National Advisory Committee was formed at the instance of the chairman of the committee, so that the soil scientists on the platform or on the National Advisory Council could meet and harmonize some of the activities so that the impacts could be felt. And we have also been involved in the information and also educational campaigns. And for our activities such as field days and 4R fairs, we have also been involved. And recently, the last year during the harvesting, some of the members were invited to witness what was going on. And apart from that, meetings, when it was not possible to meet physically, we met through Zoom, and we were able to iron out some of these challenges that came up in the course of the execution of the project. Next slide. So this is after the field day. I had the opportunity to talk to a pressman, and where this was shown on national TV, TV3, and so the interview I gave was played out there when I called for the policymakers to embrace the farmers' demand and also increase usage of fertilizer, because the farmers actually attested to the fact that the fertilizer really improved their performance. And I really called on the government to make the fertilizer available, because if it is not available, the farmers will not be able to apply. And even if it's available and not in the right quantity, they cannot apply the right quantity as the 4R project requires. And if it doesn't come on time, then timely application of the fertilizer will also not be possible. And finally, if the regulatory authorities do not make sure that we have the right fertilizer on the market, then the right source, as the 4R project is advocating, will not be possible to implement. So these are some of the active rules. And then the regional director for MUFA also gave her word to some of the things that the government and her outfit would also be doing to make sure the 4R project and the sustainability drive that the project also wants to push will all be upheld. Next slide. Hello, next slide, please. This was also at the recent National Stakeholder Assembly, National Advisory Council meeting held in Accra. And after the meeting, we had to take a group picture to really advocate for the 4R. So what you see is there's a symbol of us saying 4R and pushing for the 4R project to move on and the impact being felt. Next slide. The next slide. The next slide is also from a field day, a fair at Bimbilla, which was about 2 weeks ago, where members from the academia, the research, and also from the Department of Agriculture in the region represented to offer our support to the 4R project. And there were other stakeholders from business, personnel, input dealers who all came to showcase their produce and where to get some of these things that the 4R teaches. Next slide. Next slide, please. Good. Other roles that we are playing through the NAC, the principles have been incorporated into the Ghana Fertilizer Expansion Program. This is a government program in collaboration with the IFDC to make fertilizer blends available, and the 4R principle is going with it. And it is also being used as a mitigation, risk mitigation factor to address the inappropriate use of fertilizers and also the low usage, because we're advocating for the right source, the right quantity, applying at the right time, and also in the right place. And then we also have the Ghana Fertilizer Expansion Program, and this has also integrated 4R projects principles into the comprehensive program to boost fertilizer utilization. And we believe that this is going to improve crop productivity. And once there's that productivity, you have more of the youth, especially going into farming, and also other value chain actors who will be in the process to take up whatever will be produced. And through the NAC, we have been able to advocate for the inclusion of the community volunteers. Some, due to the shortage of agricultural extension agents, some community volunteers were recruited, 1 male, 1 female, and these were serving as backup or assistance to the conventional agricultural extension agents. But then we're able to advocate that these people should be included into the program of the department, so that whenever there is a training in agriculture, they could be invited to build their capacity so that they'll be able to work independently, even after the project is no more there. And the regional director of Agri in the northern region gave her support to this idea, and it's believed that they'll be able to incorporate them into their extension delivery system. Next slide, please. And moving forward, I would say the NAC has a key role to play because its membership consists of people with diverse backgrounds, and we have a lot of experience to share, and also a lot of advocacy that we could play. And some of the members are also strategically positioned, and they have voices that could be heard at the right places to make the necessary impact. And coming from research institutions and also universities, we come in touch with other stakeholders whose capacities need to be built from time to time. And it is our desire to champion the 4R principles through this process. And we believe that the committee members can individually or as a group advocate for the 4R project and also the principles. And I believe you can serve as worthy ambassadors. The private sector and also the input dealers on it can also serve as worthy linkages between farmers and access to inputs and markets. And because marketing is a very key issue if you don't want to discourage farmers, once you boost their yield, find a way to minimize their post-harvest losses, improve their marketing, and they will be able to champion whatever and adopt whatever technology you want to champion. Yeah. Next slide. So I can say that the committee members of NAC, we are more than ready to play that active role. We will continue to do our best to push the 4R principles agenda in the national discourse and also institutionalize the principles in most of the policies that will be championed by the government and other implementing agencies. Let me take the opportunity to acknowledge the 4R project for partnering with the CSIR Savannah Agricultural Research Institute and also the management of CSIR SARI for nominating me to serve on such a very important committee so that we can all serve Ghana better and make judicious use of the funds that have been made available to the project. And also the project implementation team, which is doing a very great job. They've been very good when it comes to the activities and how they put themselves into it. It has been an inspiration to a lot of the NAC members, and whenever we get opportunity, we are more than willing to assist. And I also acknowledge the support from other NAC members who have all made their expertise available and provided very useful inputs into the running of the project. So on this note, I will say, next slide, please. Yes, thank you very much. This is just a field day where the 4R principles was clear to the farmers, and they saw the difference between where they follow the principles and where they did not follow. And this was clear for the farmers, and it really helped to boost the objective of the project. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Well, thank you very much, Joseph, for that fine presentation. And boy, the saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. That's quite a visual representation of the success of the project. So thank you and congratulations on your great work. So as we've been rolling out the 4R Solution Initiative, we've been dealing with the reality of world events. We have war in Europe, we have COVID, supply disruptions, all of which are impacting the global economy, especially agriculture. And to share with us some insights and observations about the fertilizer scarcity challenge, we're going to go back to Joost with the African Fertilizer and Agri-Business Partnership to talk a little bit about this unique and difficult challenge that we're facing at this point in time. So Joost, over to you.
Thank you, Ernie, and thank you, Joseph, as well, for some great examples and some excellent demonstration of what needs to be done, what can be done on the ground. Next slide, please, because we live in uncertain times. Just to give you some context of who we are, AFAP, as a partner and organizer of this webinar, together with our friends from the 4R initiative and from Canadian fertilizers. AFAP is active in sub-Saharan Africa now, actually already for a decade. And in that period, we have been able to help co-develop, co-create a network of 5,000 agro dealers and retailers across these countries, as marked on the right-hand side. And while doing that, it was not just about providing them with the technical ability, some initial seed money to get them going, the training and the market linkages, but also to enable the financing so retailers can carry sufficient inventory at the point of sale and the supply chain functions more efficiently, ensuring indeed access to fertilizers at a farm level as well. These are just some numbers to give that a bit of substance. Because, next slide, please, because this is all about doing things at scale, because we're living in a time of uncertainty, as we just started. And although this has already been a key mission in Africa to help support farmers to, if you like, reach their potential in terms of productivity, over the last year, that challenge has become even more imminent and tough. And just zooming in on fertilizer, pricing has more than quadrupled. And over the last 6 weeks, that has even become more dramatic. To give you a bit of a sense, you might not realize that. I'm sure you know some of the raw materials to make fertilizer, but you might not realize that a big chunk of that is actually directly sourced from the countries which are currently in the situation as we all know it. And 40% of world exports, 20%, 10% are dramatically big numbers, which we cannot ignore, and they will and are already having big repercussions on how we do business together and how this will impact particularly sub-Saharan Africa, because obviously there's a lot more challenges we have on our plate there already. Thank you. Next. So just to give that a bit of context, and I'm just giving you here 2 examples, but I want to just underline the sense of urgency here, because this is not something where we can have some strategic reflection. This is where we need to roll up our sleeves and start doing things together and really join forces. In Kenya, fertilizer availability is down by 40% compared to last year. In Tanzania, it's down 50% versus last year. And these are just some of the initial numbers we're collecting. And these are no exceptions. This is actually a good indication of what most countries are facing, and some of them are much more dramatic even. And I'm not even talking about the actual availability at what I would call retail level access to the farmer directly. So I would really call this a burning platform, which could have tremendous negative impact on domestic productivity and food security. And I think it's important that we all internalize this and realize this, but more important than that, think about how we can actually deal with this, because this is not going away anytime soon. And if anything, it could even get more serious, and that is to a large extent not in our control. Just to give you an idea, if you look at the staple food items like cereals, for example, prices, international prices increase rapidly, and food import bills will reach a ceiling quickly. And African countries will have to compete, may have to compete with other countries with deeper pockets, which could lead to some really serious situations. And I just want to remind you of the situation we faced back in 2008 with the huge food prices and all the consequential events after that, following the increase in the oil price. And that was just one disturbing issue in global market events. Now we're facing multiple issues there. So I just wanted to underline this point. And then convert this, because I said that also in the opening points, to what I would also see as opportunities that might sound a bit funny in this context, but I would say I think we can actually, take charge with and try to make a difference together. Next slide, please. And that's where AFAP as a what would you like to see ourselves as an honest broker plays an important role. And the P of partnership is not for nothing in the core of our brand name, because that's what we do. We work together with our partners to mitigate risks, and more, first and foremost, now in this time of uncertainty. And I just outlined here a few examples to illustrate that, particularly because I believe it's also important that we do these things with scale in the back of our mind, because that's what's going to make the difference here. And it's great if we have initiatives which touch the lives of 100, of 1,000, of a group of farmers, because every life counts, every life matters, every impact for the better is important. But to be frank with you, and you know that as well, the African continent is huge. The population is massive, and the implications of ignoring that are also huge. So we need to think through on how we can do things at scale, and we can only do that by working together. I think the AFDB initiative here, the one for 200, you might be familiar with this, which is $1 billion to feed 200 million Africans, is a great example of that. But to be frank with you, it's one thing to have that at a high level gathering outlined and designed. It's another thing to convert that into concrete programs which can be implemented, which are being implemented with partners, with boots on the ground, with expertise, which can actually deliver that as well, and can do that within a time frame which really addresses the needs directly, rather than seeing that in a 5, 10 or longer year horizon. So moving fast is important. And that's one of the things I like about the 4R nutrient stewardship framework, because it's already on the ground, it's proven, and we can now look at how to further scale and grow that. The way we work as AFAP with our agribusiness partnership contracts with AFFM on financing fertilizer availability through the credit guarantee model, working with the fertilizer industry to look at ways of leveraging the revenues they are generating. Actually, they are making good money elsewhere as a result of these high prices, but to convert that into something constructive, helping us to address these availability challenges in Africa is another example. And just recently, we have worked together with African Rice and the ECOWAS Development Bank on a resilient rice seed delivery system, which could actually help reduce the rice import to 50% within a time frame of roughly 3 years, which again has massive impact and can help to address this burning platform. I don't know if you can see the bottom of this slide. I can't see it on mine, but that's more about my screen view probably. But what is important is also that we do this fact-based, because it's important that we know what we're doing where and at which scale and with which impact. So one of the things we've also initiated is a partnership together with Africam, where we leverage our network, which we have developed over the years, to gather data, to double check and validate those effectively, in order to generate insights and efficient data analytics to monitor the situation. And rather than having high-level discussions without properly backing that up with data, it's better to do that with insights generated from the front line across Africa. Next slide. And I just want to show you a few examples without getting into details now, but I want to give you a slice of this interesting angle or approach to support these initiatives, to support the type of partnership AFAP is looking for and is working on together with our partners. So we make it really effective and impactful, but we can also measure success, impact, and real change together. Next. Rather than having qualitative measures only or relatively small scale initiatives without the ability to replicate and scale that up. Next. 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 Thank you. That brings to the end of my presentation. I hope I've been able not just to give you a bit of a sense of urgency, because that's definitely the purpose of this presentation, because there is scarcity as we speak, and I don't think we've seen the bottom of that yet. But also want to give you a message of hope, and not hope by lighting a candle, but hope by working together and showing our muscles and translating that into real work along real initiatives which are already out there, and doing that together. And I hope I've been able to share some examples of what we are already doing today. And I look forward to do more of that tomorrow together with you. Thank you, Arne.
Okay, Toast, thank you very much for that sobering reminder of the real world that we live in today. And there are many things that are beyond our control. And we'll come back and talk more about this in the question and answer session. But I would urge us to reflect on what you just wrapped up with, the opportunity. Crisis creates opportunities. and there needs to be hope here as we pivot from the current situation, move forward. So be thinking about questions for Toast and our other panel members. Okay, now we're going to pivot and take a look at some financing mechanisms that are underway to help further build out the efficient use of fertilizer. And with us today is Joseph Magandi with the AFAP. And I believe you're going to be focusing on lessons from Tanzania. So Joseph, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you, Annie. And good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, wherever you may be participating from. I'm going to share experiences and lessons learned from a program we're implementing in Tanzania. It is a trade credit guarantee facilitation program with funding from Africa Development Bank. There are lessons and positive experiences that we wish to share today. Next, please. I would like to begin from the bigger picture, maybe with the end of the result, the end result of our activities in Tanzania. And I begin by highlighting the typical fertilizer value chain, using Tanzania as an example. You will find this value chain as applicable in most African countries, and we work within the value chain to link with the actors and facilitate flow of fertilizer through the mechanism that I am going to describe. With a €2 million credit guarantee facility from Africa Development Bank, Avap has been able to facilitate 3 large movers of fertilizer to channel fertilizer through 30 small and medium-sized enterprises, reaching out to over 940 retailers who have reached over 530,000 farmers. And that is as a result of facilitating fertilizer flows from the importers, from manufacturers, through the hub agro-dealers. Hub agro-dealers are large wholesalers who have invested in logistics, like transport vehicles, like warehouse for storage, and are able to bulk or hold fertilizer at the right time in order to avail that downstream to retailers who are linked to them, and those retailers are further linked down to the farmers. This flow can work well when certain things are in place, and one of them is financing. One of them is capacities of the players within the value chain, and consistent with the 4R solutions to avail fertilizer to the farmers at the downstream end. We have partnered with Fertilizer Canada in order to advance this program in several countries. Next, please. Just advancing the idea of the numbers that we've been able to realize. In 2 seasons of 2020 and 2021, we were able to facilitate 63,000 metric tons of fertilizer that was traded along the value chain. The value of that tonnage of fertilizer was a total of $26 million. And these are real numbers that have been captured from the ledgers of the organizations that we work with. These are not actually estimates, they are real actual numbers. We can say with certainty that for every single dollar that the guarantee is available, we've been able to generate trade worth $13 of fertilizer trade. Next, please. So the question that I'm trying to answer here is, how has Avap done it? And I would like to explain the mechanism that Avap uses. It's not rocket science, but it is an important mechanism that has positive impact, but can also be difficult to work because of, as we have come to note, there has to be trust down or through the value chain between the actors upstream up to downstream. Next, please. So we have a very prescribed process. We call it the AFAP 9-stage process. The process begins with, once we get into a country and we are establishing the program, the first step is to scan the actual value chain drivers, the large importers, the large manufacturers, the large blenders who have a product that they want to move down the street, downstream to the farmers. After identifying these players, we work with them in order to get their buy-in. And if I can mention at this point, Africa in the Avap in the countries that we are working in, we are working with every fertilizer player, fertilizer importer, blender, manufacturer. They are more like our partners in the countries where we work. So in any new country that we get into, the industry buy-in is crucial. We explore collaborative arrangements with the key players that we can partner with in order to create the flow that I'm describing. Then we enter into binding engagements. These are credit guarantee agreements with the large suppliers that are involved in the program. Then we turn downstream and look at the agro dealers and the wholesalers that are important actors. We profile these in order to identify those that we call qualified buyers. These are agri-SMEs. They have invested. They are looking for linkages with upstream suppliers so that they can get credit that will expand their business as well. So there's congruency of needs between the upstream players as well as the downstream actors. After identifying the qualifying buyers, we develop what we call qualified buyer schedules. We work with the suppliers in order to determine what volumes do they want to move through the downstream players. That will determine the limits of the credit guarantee that Avap is undertaking to guarantee for the larger suppliers, even or buyers themselves. Once you've got those details, we put together what we call the Agri-Business partnership contracts. These are agreements between Avap and the agro dealers or the suppliers, which clearly highlight the roles and responsibilities of the parties in the fertilizer market development. And they go as far as identifying the role that the suppliers may engage downstream up to the farmer level, including demonstration farms, training. Some of the agro dealers will hire agronomists who are about training and can extend to the farmers. So the activities extend to extension to the farmers as well, beside the credit that we are engaged in. One of the roles of AFAP is capacity building of the, especially the agro dealers, the wholesalers, and this is important as a risk mitigation measure, because the better performing agro dealers or SMEs are more attractive to the upstream players to expand their business, as long as they have a sense of the business capacity that the specific agro dealers are have. We have a fairly robust monitoring and evaluation team who capture data on who capture data and digitize that data in order to inform the program, inform where we need improvement as part of the program. And finally, closing the program is the final evaluation and feedback. So that intense 9-stage process helps in establishing the trade credit guarantee provisioning in the country of focus. Next, please. This final slide is basically highlighting the role of AFAP. AFAP seeks to deepen and strengthen trade relationships along the value chain, and we have come to realize that the relationships really depend on trust that evolves over time as these actors relate. On the left, AVAP provides strengthening of agri-dealers through training up to the supplier. AVAP brings to the supplier active and qualified agri-dealers or wholesalers who have whom we actually carry out risk profiling to determine the risk extent to which the players may be exposed, and where we, out of that assessment of risk, we determine the training needs and capacity building of the hubs, and finally managing and monitoring the credit trade provisioning. This entails where we are managing the program, we are monitoring all the players, we are keeping tabs as to the amount of fertilizer that is trade that is taking place, where there are hiccups, where there is default, following up to ensure that monies that can be recovered can be followed up and recovered, and those that cannot be recovered, working with the guaranteed parties in order to be compensated. Next, please. And I believe that is the end of my program. Thank you very much. Back to you, Hani.
Okay, Joseph, thank you very much. There's a lot of information in your presentation there. And I think what my big takeaway, and others probably have others, is the importance and critical need to integrate risk, inventory, financial management. These are all co-joined efforts that work together as a system. So I'm sure we'll have some follow-up questions and conversations go forward. Okay, we now turn to our final presentation before we go to questions and answers, and that is with Nana Isa Mohammed with AFAP, and she's going to be talking about the policy reform arena around the 4R Solution Program and financing and fertilizer use in Africa. So Nana, welcome, over to you.
Thank you very much. As he said, my name is Nana Isa Mohammed, and I'm speaking from Ghana. My presentation will basically be looking at the current partnership that AFAP has with the 4R project and also Fertilizer Canada. Can my presentation start, please? Next page, please. So an overview of the Ghana fertilizer market. So the Ghana fertilizer market is purely organized around the government subsidy program, looking at more of the staple food crops, which makes about 60 to 70% of the total fertilizer imports. The rest of the fertilizer import or the fertilizer consumption is split between corporate or commercial farms and then also the Ghana Cocoa Board. As of 2018, the total land under cultivation for Ghana was 7.4 million hectares. And if you look at the data for total fertilizer imports over the last couple of years. In 2018, we had 315,000 metric tons, approximately. In 2019, we're looking at 425,000 metric tons. In 2020, we shot up to 618,000 metric tons for total imports. And in 2021, we had a dip to almost 239,000 metric tons. That's almost about a 60% reduction in total fertilizer availability on the local markets. For us, as AFAP, and then also looking at the partnership that we have with the 4R principles, it's a critical issue that looks at, that can impact the achievement of the 4R principles in terms of the availability, the right time, the right source, and the right rate, because inavailability of inputs can also impact the farmers' access to that input, and then the quality, and then also the pricing issues. Next, please. Next page, please. When we look at the policy framework, or the legal policy framework that governs the fertilizer sector, we're looking at the Plant and Fertilizer Act. We're looking at the plant fertilizer regulations. We're looking at the blending guidelines. We also have in place the fertilizer analytical manual. We have the National Fertilizer Policy, and we have the Fertilizer Sampling and Inspection Manual. That basically looks at how we can be able to support and create a better ecosystem in terms of ensuring quality, ensuring availability, and then meeting international standards. Beyond these regulations, we also have other policies and programs that support or that have a direct or indirect impact on the fertilizer or availability of inputs. Is the Ghana Fertilizer Expansion Program, as mentioned in the previous presentations. This pretty much will be replacing the or speaks to the government's desire for the sector, or the government's plans for the fertilizer sector in Ghana. The main idea for the Ghana Fertilizer Expansion Program, of which AFAP is a critical technical or provides technical advisory services to the ministry in terms of putting this together, is to be able to move Ghana to a more of a fertilizer sustainability, or make us less dependent on imports and more dependent, or be able to support local production. And the idea is also to look at how we can be able to strengthen private sector's participation, which is a very critical role that AFAP plays in terms of mobilizing and supporting private sector to actively engage in the agriculture sector. We also have the Planting for Food and Job program, which has been run by the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, which is looking at a holistic value chain in terms of availability of inputs, which is where government also subsidizes the inputs, and also access to markets, which government does through the support that is for the Planting for Food and Export. And then also critical area is the extension services, which the government is also running through this Planting for Food and Job program. For the economic side, we also have the fiscal regulations, the VATs, the tax exemptions, the import taxes, different taxes, and different fiscal regulations that also directly and indirectly impact the fertilizer sector. I just wanted to give an overview of some of these things so that when we go into the partnership, we understand the reason why the AFAP is proposing to partner with the 4R project in Ghana to sort of like critically touch some of these key areas. The next stage, please. Next page. So our partnership with Fertilizer Canada and the 4R program in Ghana. So in 2021, June, AFAP and Fertilizer Canada signed a partnership on an MOU, pretty much on behalf of the 4R program in Ghana, or the 4R program implementation, basically looking at the complementary objectives that we have with AFAP, and then also the goals towards increasing productivity of farmers, and then strengthening or bettering the living standards of smallholder farmers within the developing countries. We as AFAP and Fertilizer Canada believe that working together, that is bringing the strengthening private sector participation, and ensuring also the availability and the quality, be able to ensure that it's beneficial to the farmers. Part of the agreement is also to scale up some of these principles and learnings from the 4R implementation, and some of the resources that are available to Fertilizer Canada, to these other countries beyond the 3 implementing countries. As mentioned in my team by my other colleagues, AFAP is present or has footprints in about 17 African countries beyond the 3 that Fertilizer Canada is working in. Next page, please. Next page, please. Yes. So the scope of our partnership, so our partnership with the project for these 3 countries is looking at the increase in adaptation and implementation of the 4R principles among stakeholders. So we are looking at a holistic plan where we are going to be actively engaging government, actively engaging the private sector companies, so the manufacturers, importers, blenders along the value chain, and then also the farmers and FBOs, and even the financial institutions, because of course, as mentioned by my colleague Joseph, access to finance also has an impact on the availability in the right time and the right use and the right sourcing of fertilizer. We will be focusing on also building capacity of stakeholders on the 4R principles, and how we can be able to come up with even financing instruments that are very responsive to the 4R principles, or would contribute directly to supporting farmers' adoption of the 4R principles. We'll also be focusing on organizing joint engagements and policy reforms through the NAC. That's the advisory committee, and also beyond the advisory committee, targeting key donor community, the fertilizer working group, the Noun Fertilizer Advisory Committee that was just inaugurated. We would be looking at how we can be able to actively engage them, because the only way we can be able to push and drive change is to make sure that there are some policy, they are captured in policy, and there are some policy directions that can be able to support whatever it is that we want to drive. We'll also be looking at improving access to finance through close collaboration with CDF, who is working very closely with some of the cooperatives and strengthening the credit unions at the community level. We'll be also working with them to build the capacity of the credit union staff, and also just pretty much streamlining the activities and making them more efficient, and so that they can be able to deliver better services to the farmers in terms of access to finance in general. So if you look at what all of the presentations that we need more of documenting all of the lessons learned, the processes, the procedures, and then also sharing this to the relevant decision making, packaging in such a way that is relevant and can be able to help decision making at all levels. So we would be tailoring all of these documentation to speak to the farmers in terms of decision making on what type of fertilizer to buy, what time they should purchase the fertilizer, what is the right nutrient that they require, how do they manage their resources in such a way that they could be able to plan ahead of time. At the management level or at the government level, we also want to be able to support them in terms of making decisions. If we had been able to actively engage with government, foreseeing some of these critical fertilizer shortages, we would have been able to help government make critical decisions in terms of when to release their subsidy quotas or their subsidy documentation to enable companies to be able to purchase and stock in on time. Next page, please. So what do we seek to do? What do we seek to achieve? If you look at the principles, so if you look at what we said was that the 4R principles are entrenched in the project document development or the partnership that we seek to achieve. And we are looking that at the end of the day, we would have smart policies, regulations and legal frameworks and programs in country in partnership with government and private sector actors. AFAP is very strong in the private sector space because we seem to be, we are able to understand private sector's participation and work very closely with private sector. In countries, in these 3 countries, I think apart from Ethiopia, the governments are currently facing some critical issues in terms of access to finance. So private sector has a very critical role to play in terms of achieving these 4R principles. And that is where AFAP would be supporting critically the partnership or the program to be able to navigate within private sector space and be able to also leverage our key relationships with private sector actors to be able to critically come up with programs and initiatives that can be able to support the adoption of the 4R principles. So we'll be strengthening and aligning in-country policies, regulations, and frameworks to international standards with support with private sector intervention, enhancing targeting and implementations of these interventions, and ensure quality and efficiency of inputs used by farmers. So this will have to do with the feedbacking of the through some of our field demonstration activities that we'll be doing, and then also helping them in product development that will speak to the right nutrient, the right soil nutrient or the plant nutrient needs or within these communities or within these program countries. Next. I think for us, the ultimate aim is to make sure that we have quality, affordable inputs for farmers in general. Our target for the program or for the activities are private sector companies, mainly manufacturers, importers, agro-dealers, financial institutions, farmer-based organizations and co-ops. We'll also be looking at critical issues of off-takers and processors, because one of the key things is that they are the ones that set the tone for the market. And if we're able to actively engage them in a way that they can be able to then drive back the need for practice of 4R principles, to also help them in achieving the quality standards of feedback into the process. We'll also be looking at government, so we'll be actively engaging the parliamentary select committees, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Trade, and the Ministry of Finance, because all of these actors are critical and play a critical role in the financing and the decision-making process or the policy process. Research institutions will not be left out. I see the partnership that we have on the NAC, where we have the research institutions critical. They contribute a great deal in the decision-making process and also advising and also helping with the with generation of information. Universities and schools, we will also be targeting universities and then also tertiary and secondary schools actively to be able to drive the principles all the way to the community level. Next page, please. I think that's pretty much does it. Yes, that pretty much does my presentation. We're welcome to answer questions. One of the things that that we don't have in this the slide that I would want to also highlight is AFAP's policy tracker that we would be employing in this process. Is that we've developed a robust system of tracking government's adherence and adoption of policies, and we have we've developed a dashboard where we enter these key policy indicators that we score and track governments over a period of time, and that'll be one of the critical instruments that we'll be using throughout this process with the 4R principle, the 4R nutrient stewardship program. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Isa. And we've run a little bit long, but boy, there was a lot of good material here. So not to worry. We have about 10 minutes left, and there are a number of questions that have been posed in the question and answer box. And if we're not able to get to your particular question, we will be following up in writing. So don't worry that you'll be just forgotten. We will be following up with you. And I'm going to pose the first question, then go to Clyde. Maybe we can tag team Clyde, because I think you've been helping me review these. And there was a question about the post-COVID community services training that's going to be happening across the continent. And is there a way to embed a 4R and food production training component? Is there one of our panel members that might take a crack at that? Isaac, I wonder if I could direct that one to you. Post-COVID training, and might we be able to integrate 4R training more broadly, more systematically? And Isaac may be on mute. Would one of our other panel members like to there you go, Isaac, go ahead, please.
My internet was bad, so I never heard the question. So if you can repeat.
Okay. Clyde, anything you'd like to comment on regarding that question, and then maybe go to your question?
Sure. Just to say that training is a critical part of the program for farmers and extension workers. We are interested in working in partnership. A lot of the material for training is online already, and so we'd be happy to work with people throughout the continent within our limited resources to provide that kind of training material and perhaps look at a broader mandate. So post-COVID, but there are many other opportunities to utilize the existing training we have. And I think also AFAP is a key player in the whole area of training as well.
Okay, and Clyde, did you see a question that jumped out at you you'd like to pose?
Sure. I could just, there's been a couple questions related to post harvest loss. And I think some questions about why those aren't being addressed in the 4R solution project. So I can quickly just say that, we'd like to address all of the many challenges that are in African agriculture, many of them related to infrastructure, which I think is a key part of preventing post-harvest loss, but we do have limited resources. But I would say that to the extent that we can help make farmers in Africa or help farmers in Africa become more profitable and the economies of African countries stronger, there's going to be more money available to build proper storage and provide proper logistics to get crops to market without undue loss. So I would just pivot and say there's been a number of questions regarding the very difficult circumstances that Joost described related to the fertilizer market. There is a significant imbalance between very high demand for fertilizer and a number of supply constraints. And maybe Joost, you might want to just comment on some of those factors.
I mean, just before Joost joins, I'd just like to say that through the partnership with CDF, we will be then looking critically at also post-harvest losses and strengthening the market systems within the country, the communities that we will be working in. One of the key things that we'll be doing is also mapping some of these community farmers to key off-takers and processors, and then helping them to be able to then off-take and then offer farmers a better price for their produce.
Okay. And Joost, I think just unmute and you're ready to go.
Thank you. Sorry for that. Yes. Well, it's. I think there was one comment that it's great to have. If you have fertilizer, then you still need good seeds, for example, which is a fair point because you see similar challenges there as well. And also, as one example, we're working on a West African initiative, which I touched on briefly, for rice seeds, which are climate resilient and more disease resistant, as an example of how to do that, rather than having farmers use their basically their paddy from the previous season as seeds, which is not the best start, whether or not you have access to fertilizers. The other aspect, of course, and that's also where 4R is very important, but there's even some simpler, if you like, supporting tools for that, which also fit within the context 4R, is a lot of good agricultural practices, how you can properly treat seeds, how you can properly apply the right amounts of fertilizer at the right time, which can generate a lot of savings simply by doing it the right way and understanding the right techniques, which do not require very high-end technology or insights and knowledge, but you do need to know. You do need to have access some way or another to that training. So I think that is important to underline. More practical, I think Joseph outlined what we are doing when it comes to enabling the availability of fertilizer through the credit guarantee model, which obviously is also a key instrument to help this access to fertilizers. And let us also be realistic here. Just a last point. I think, to be honest with you, in quite a few of these regions, humanitarian aid will become critical very soon. So there will be a mix, and that's why this conversation is so important between these sort of urgent direct intervention funds, which are more in the humanitarian context, combined and backed by the more strategic structural interventions, which we're discussing here, along the lines of what the 4R approach is advocating and explaining what you can do on policy, what you can do on financing, what you can do on bolstering the supply chain. And I think it's actually the mix of these two which are critical to address and to recognize as such. Thank you. Over to you, Ernie.
So thank you, Joost, and that point was an important one. This crisis requires an all-of-world response, and hopefully we'll see alignment between major players that can really come in and provide support, whether it's World Bank, IFAD, FAO, the World Food Program. We all need to come together and help address this problem. We had a question that I was going to direct to Dr. Danguish about the success that you achieved in getting the 4R program integrated into the Ghana Fertilizer Expansion Program. That's an example of the program taking root and being embedded in a broader driving force of transformational change. Could you comment just briefly on how did that happen? Was it a multi-stakeholder collaboration where the partners in 4R came together, teamed up, and decided that was a key target to focus in on? What could you share about that, Joseph?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, you know, the Directorate of Crop Services, which more or less like, in terms of crop production, the Department of Agriculture, the national level, the one in charge of crop services, he is the chairman of the National Advisory Council. So he's very influential and also part of the government policies of fertilizer programs. So he is been able to advocate for the inclusion of the 4R principles into the activity. So that is the one way of getting it into government program, because he's an active part of the government policies as part of the implementing personnel. He was able to advocate for that. And IFDC is also part of the government fertilizer expansion program, and there are also representatives on the National Advisory Council. So more or less, it's like a cycle of experts who are very influential in one way or the other. And at various board meetings, they are able to push for the 4R agenda to be included.
Okay, thank you. Clyde, I think we have time for one more question. I'll let you pitch it.
Yeah, sure. But before I do, there have been a number of questions about certificates of participation. We would invite anybody who needs that to use their email confirming their registration, if that works. If you need more, please contact us and we will try and get something that will meet your needs for that kind of participation certificate. I think, you know, there have been a number of questions about the role of organic fertilizer, commercial type fertilizers, you know, manure or compost. I think, as people have said, this is a very critical period. And so we would invite people to use the 4R principles for all their fertilizer. And I think often the combination of synthetic fertilizers and organic fertilizers can have very positive outcomes for soil fertility. But I would ask if any of the other panelists would have any comments on the role of organics and their relation to the 4Rs.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to the African Fertilizer and Agribusiness Partnership for hosting today. We hope you found this presentation to be informative and valuable. This is an ongoing conversation, so we invite you to share this webinar series within your networks. Continue to follow up with us with questions. And I want to thank our panel members for taking the time to prepare and share your insight and experiences. And we'd be remiss if we did not thank Terrence with AFAP and Labanya with Fertilizer Canada for all of the great behind the scenes work that went into making this webinar possible. There's a lot to it, and we're very appreciative for their great support. So everyone, thank you for joining today. Best wishes. Let's hope the crisis subsides and we can get on with continuing to transform agriculture in Africa so that we're supplying not just food, feed, and fiber, but improving quality of life along the way. Thank you all very much. Bye, everyone.